We've seen Alexander Volkov clearly has a real kryptonite here. Not only is it the fast hybrid who has the fast hands, who can get in and get out, hit Volkov and not get hit, but when you could mix in the takedowns too and keep him on the ground, it's just a different beast right there. How impressed were you with Tom Aspinall's grappling against Drago, Alexander Volkov? He took a 7-foot man and you put him on his butt. Not quite as scary right there. What do you think?
Not quite as scary at all, especially with the smoothness and the crispness that Aspinall did it. Man, that slip to that double, the shot, man, beautiful. Like quick timing. They were talking about he fights, is that middleweight style with the heavyweight power. Man, Aspinall is the real deal. Super impressed. And nonetheless, he was looking good on the feet. But like you said, Derek, the grappling is absolutely insane. Once you get him down, how many, I was actually going to look this up. I was going to look this stat up before, but I forgot until just right now. How many straight arm locks have we seen actually get submitted in the UFC? I'm betting it's under 10 because that's a very rarefied submission right there, especially in MMA. You see it all the time in the mats, but in MMA for sure. Man, the fact that Tom Aspinall could do that and get it done to somebody as experienced and that has the prowess of a Volkov speaks levels, man, levels right there.
Absolutely. And when we really go into the fine details of it, let me look, because Alexander Volkov, he has now had 44 career fights, right? 44. That is a lot of fights. In the UFC, he has had 9 fights. When we're talking about finishes and we're talking about losses, Alexander Volkov has been knocked out twice, submitted now 3 times, and decisioned 5 times. So 40 fights, and he's been finished 5 times in those 40 fights. It's a very small percentage, and Tom Aspinall is now amongst that very tiny percentage. So it is very, very impressive. But I do agree. It wasn't your conventional arm bark. It was a straight arm lock. A lot of that stuff was set up by the Kimura grips that he did, and he actually had the Kimura grip the first time he took him to the ground. And I don't want to get too technical, you know what I mean, for those who aren't super, in there. But it's basically a wrist, it's a wrist grip, right? You're grabbing your wrist, setting up a Kimura, and he ended up using it, extending the arm out, and cranking on that for the arm lock. And you saw it just took just a matter of moments, and Volkov was ready to give it up, ready to tap. I want to ask you, though, your opinion on the hand speed and what happened on the feet versus Tom Aspinall and Volkov. It really seemed to me, AJ, that Volkov just struggled with the speed of Aspinall. He was just too quick, too fluid, and even when Volkov threw those long limbs at him, Aspinall, his boxing was crisp enough and his boxing defense was crisp enough for him to just slip out the way. All right, we back at it. I'm cutting off the cage. Alexander Volkov, essentially, when he has his back against the cage and he is not dominating the center of the octagon, becomes a much less effective version of the swole Drago that we saw just a few fights ago when he first got the back tat. Give me your thoughts on that whole entire situation. Is Tom Aspinall the real deal with the pressure, or did Volkov have an off night? What do you think?
Man, I think Tom Aspinall's a real deal, brother. I did just with how Aspinall was moving, seeing the strikes coming in, even when Volkov was being the aggressor and kind of pushing forward, Aspinall was using that momentum against him, slipping around, using the momentum, literally moving from side to side, getting outside, and then putting it right back to Volkov. Very impressive, man. I'm there was a couple things with this fight because I was curious why you would want to call out someone like Tai Tuivasa and not call out the champ. We'll settle that one a little later, but to me, Aspinall really is that fun fighter, man. That guy who has it all kind of everywhere, whether you want to go on the feet, whether you want to go on the ground, wherever you want to take this fight, this dude can get it done against both opponents who sit back, like you said, analyze and counter strike, or the guy who's on the front foot, putting that pressure to him and actually getting it going. I think Aspinall can do it all, man. I was very impressed with the hand speed, head movement too, man. Tom Aspinall was looking just the next level, and it's crazy to see that fighter with so much experience like Volkov still hasn't necessarily grown as much as the sport has. He's kind of stayed in his lane for the most part, where Aspinall just keeps coming up, climbing and showing new things with each and every fight, man.
I think it's more of a product of your generation type situation, right? When you come up and fighting is a certain way, and over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years, the sport has evolved so much, it's hard to catch up in that time. But AJ, you mentioned why did he call out Tai Tuivasa? We'll talk about that in actually just 1 second. I just want to ask you a quick question before that. So we need to do a little bit of comparison right now, brother. I think it's important at this stage of both of these fighters' respective careers. What is more impressive to you? I'm going to rattle off 2 streaks. You tell me what's more impressive. A first round TKO over Parker Porter, a first round TKO over Rodrigo Nascimento, a first round TKO over Alexei Oleinik, a second round TKO over Shamil Abdurakhimov. Those 4 fights in a row. What is more impressive, that or first round knockout versus Jake Collier, first round knockout versus Alan Boudreaux, second round submission, rear naked choke against Andrei Arlovsky, first round knockout over Sergey Spivak, and a first round submission over Alexander Volkov. Which of those streaks is more impressive to you?
I'd have to say the second one, the Aspinall streak, because that like having Arlovsky and Volkov.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you got the Abdurakimovs, you got the other ones that are actually in there, but they don't have that legend status of that name like an Arlovsky, or for a lot of these people, man, Volkov too, man, he's a legend out there as well. So I'd have to go with the second one. What about you?
Well, I say the second one too, and for folks who are just listening or watching, the first one was Chris Daukaus's current streak. Right now he dropped his last one to the Black Beast, but a lot of people are saying that could be what's next for Tom Aspinall. Not Tai Tuivasa, but you get the Black Beast, so we're going to go on that same trajectory. Now I want to talk rankings just for a quick second. This isn't the rankings review, but this just matters really quickly. Chris Daukaus is now ranked number 8 in the world at heavyweight, right? Tom Aspinall, he just beat Alexander Volkov, who's ranked number 6 in the world. Famously, maybe infamously, Tom Aspinall did note, he said, folks, I don't want to fast track myself. I want to be here for a long time, not just a good time. So let's take our time and let's work our way up the rankings. I want this guy. He was supposed to fight Shamil Abdurakhimov before Alexander Volkov got the opponent switch and all that. So now, next thing you know, you're number 6 in the world. Hopefully, we'll see where the UFC, puts him in the rankings. But at the end of the day, you have a more impressive streak than Chris Daukaus. You have a better number than Chris Daukaus. It is inevitable, brother, that they do see each other here in the next couple of fights. Honestly, at this point, I don't see how they do not collide. Do you agree with me? Or are the UFC matchmakers keeping these guys as far apart as possible? I feel like this is a reoccurring theme on this program, but I need to know. I need to know what is going to be the future of these two future heavyweight stars. What do you think?
If they don't see each other in the next 3 fights, I'm going to be absolutely shocked, man. Especially with both of them winning. You know, we got the Daukaus fight coming up, so we're going to be able to see. But with them winning again and streaking, it's inevitable, man. It's absolutely inevitable. I'm just hoping it comes in time for like a number 1 contenders fight or something like that. Now, maybe not within the next one, the next 2, but I definitely within the next 3. These dudes are fighting.
Okay, I hope so. And brother, you asked why call out Tai Tuivasa, why call out Shui Tuivasa and not Francis Ngannou and not Cyril Gane? Well, I would argue to you that Alexander Volkov, who has won 3 of his last 5, he's lost to Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. Before that, it was Curtis Blades. Before that, it was Derek Lewis. You beat Alexander Volkov. That doesn't necessarily earn you the right to fight for the title after that. So that is my question to you. I'm going to relay that back. Why not call out Shui Tuivasa, who is arguably the most popular fighter in the top 5 right now in the heavyweight division, aside from Cyril Gane? Like, why not call him out?
Well, that's what I was thinking. So to me, you either on this route, you call out Tuivasa. Are you trying to be the entertaining fighter, the guy who's just going to get the crowd? Because that's what Tuivasa is. That's that fight, man. You're being the entertainer. You're just trying to get the crowd going, get people on your side so that you can have that push later. Or you take the champ route. You call out, the John Jones, the Cyril Gane, the Francis Ngannou, whoever of those top 4, top 3 fighters that are up there that actually have a lot of clout in there. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to be the entertainer and have fun, be the guy who it doesn't really matter what happens in your fights as long as you're drawing people in? That's the Tuivasa route. Or you go the champ route. I mean, to me, it makes sense. Like if Tom Aspinall wants to be the entertainer, makes 100% sense. That's all day right there, because eventually you do that well enough, the championship will come. But it does seem to be the longer route. And I was just curious. I like the call out. Don't get me wrong, Derek. I like the call out a lot. I was just curious, which route do we see Aspinall take it? The entertainer route, where he's here, 5 fights, still hasn't fought for the championship, but we're seeing some very entertaining fights, or, the 3 of them, and then we go up to the top.
Well, I have a different theory. My theory is not that he wants to be an entertainer or that he wants to slow roll himself, but my theory could be, well, he's finishing everybody in the first and second round. How about let's get a little more mat time before we go fight for a championship? Go fight 5 rounds. You know what I mean? Because really, at this point, everybody, there are no exceptions, man. He's never been outside of the second round in his entire career, not even in the amateurs. So let's give him a little bit of time. Let him set himself up. And if you beat Tai Tuivasa in impressive fashion, you are the new superstar of the heavyweight division. Really, there's nobody more popular than Shui Tuivasa. However, I don't know if Aspinall has the personality to, you know what I mean, be in that same mold of Tuivasa. Because Tuivasa is fun. He comes out to girls just want to have fun, and you know he's doing shoeies and he doesn't care. And he's a big dude, and he's like, we're about to go get, go get drunk at the bar after the fight. What's up? Who's with me? Tom Aspinall, even though he, great fighter, I just don't know if he fits that mold. Now, my last thing before we move on here, AJ, I took stock in Tom Aspinall. Basically, when we first started this program, you took stock in Chris Daukaus. I think my stock on Aspinall just a little higher, brother. Would you say I'm in the leaderboard on that side right now? What do you think?
Ooh, I don't know about that, Derek.
Oh,
Yeah, I
come on.
mean, don't get me wrong. I feel like it was Aspinall versus Daukaus over here. So I see where you're coming from. And Aspinall's been putting it too. The strength of schedule definitely goes to Aspinall, especially with the most recent win. Although I think the people's champ, Chris Daukaus, he can still have some swing back in him, man.
Well, listen, you have a chance to get your stock a little bit higher, tie or surpass me and Tom Aspinall next week when he fights Curtis Blades. But I just think in the meantime, right now, I gave you the early lead. They pushed Daukaus early. He dropped the ball to Lewis. Aspinall hasn't dropped the ball yet, brother. So listen, if you're doing stock in these UFC fighters, Tom Aspinall is your man. For now, I will just say that. Great win by Tom Aspinall. First round arm lock. Nobody does that to Drago. Nobody does that to Volkov. This is a real deal player in the heavyweight division.